guys in the rubber duckies.
Yes, yeah. So there were various medics and other support crew, but there were people whose sole responsibility was to watch for leopard seals, and sure as anything is, along came a leopard seal during our challenge, and it made its beeline for us, and then some of the Zodiacs left the swimmers, the ones that could, and went and circled the beast a little bit, and apparently he turned around and went away. Now thankfully when I was swimming,
Yes.
I had no idea that this
Thank
was going on,
goodness,
so I only found out afterwards when I saw the footage.
Yeah.
Which was quite
Because you
surprising,
literally
you
seen
know.
pop up, Dong, it's like, oh my god, swim! Wow. And then I noticed that when you came out of the water, they were trying to, you were kind of lost slight consciousness. Is that going to hypothermia or what?
Yes, so I was in the water for 32 minutes,
Wow.
which is a very long time to be in that water. You know, what happens is when the blood leaves all your extremities, you lose all coordination and power in those muscles because they've got no blood to feed them. So the challenge is keeping you kind of have to change gear from body to mind, and you feel very, very heavy in the water, and slowly your mental abilities diminish greatly, and you start to forget why you're there, and then you remember, then you forget, and then you know, and if it wasn't for the support crew directly alongside me giving me the thumbs up and clapping, A, I would have forgotten what I was doing towards the end, and B, I would have been too scared. I would have been pulled up, as you literally feel your body shutting down.
Yeah.
So yes, I was very hypothermic, but that was pre-planned, and you know, we put a lot of recovery facilities in place. And yeah, I was very confused. You know, there's a funny story attached. You go into what you call the recovery period, because there's a concept called the after drop. Let me quickly explain that.
Yes.
So the most dangerous part of any extreme cold swim is actually, it's not during the swim, it's when you finish it. Because I described that process where all your blood rushes from your extremities to protect your vital organs, so it sits in your center core. When you finish the swim, that warm blood in your center core circulates back to your extremities, which are now absolutely frigid, and that warm blood rapidly cools, and then what does it do? It circulates back to your core again.
Wow.
So your core temperature has what we call an after drop, goes down after the swim, and that's what the medics can't really control. They can only watch. If it goes one notch too low, that's the end of you. So we have processes in place and mental techniques to try and put ourselves through that. But I was in that recovery facility for quite a long time. And there was a gentleman called Tux Verveers who was my second on the day and good mate, and he was busy filming in the recovery and helping. And I remember that evening we were sitting fully recovered, and I was busy contemplating life up at the bar having a beer, and Tux came and sat next to me, and he was saying, well done, and he said, right, Ryan, how are your feet? And I was like, oh, my feet are fine. It's not a ridiculous question, because everything hurts after a swim that cold, your fingernails and your toenails especially. I said, no, my feet are fine. He says, oh, they're okay. So I said, yeah, and he left it. And about half an hour later, he came back to me and he said, are you sure there's nothing wrong with your feet? They're absolutely fine. I said, no, Talk says nothing, my feet are fine. That's the least of my worries. And then he confessed that when in that recovery room, he was busy filming me, and he had been on the boat, so he was wearing the full Antarctic gear with his big boots. And he realized 10 minutes into filming me that he was standing on my bare feet with his big boots.
Oh my gosh.
So I tell the story to tell you my mental state. I have no recollection of that whatsoever, and I didn't even know he was standing on my feet. So I don't remember a lot of what was happening in recovery.
Yes.
They've got to get you through a certain point. Your life is in the hands of the others. You've just got to stay. We don't lie down. We've learned that you want to stay seated.
Yes.
And we've also learned that our swim is only after once you turn the corner. So once your temperature starts going up rather than down after that after drop. And then once you start shivering, that's good. It's horrible, but it's good.
Yes. No, that's amazing. I mean, I also saw it in the water. I actually noticed when you started off, you were going quite fast, and then you could see this, you started getting slower and slower and slower, and that's obviously when you really have to start using and knowing who you are inside, and just saying, I am going to do this one stroke at a time, because if you start getting in your head at that moment in time, you would get out of the water.
Absolutely.
Fighting that body and just being in your free will and pushing your own boundaries.
Yeah. And again, there's the beautiful messaging. I was pushing my boundaries. I was petrified. If it wasn't for my support team alongside, I would not have succeeded. Let me say that categorically. They never touched me. They never helped me physically or directly. They were just there, highly attentive and capable and well briefed. And that gave me the confidence to just keep my head down and fight through the fear and the body shutdown and mental shutdown that I was experiencing just to try to keep going to get a hand on that gangway and finish my swim.
Awesome. And I also noticed that you had a doctor, or you always have a doctor around you, but especially on that boat when you first said, I'm not going to to get involved with this if you're going to climb in the water. Yes, I'm sure. I mean, I know everything about doctors as well, because doctors believe in one thing, and that's that in the box thinking. You know.
Correct. So wrote us a letter saying how they've changed everything they know about hypothermia and everything they know about treatment, and their eyes have been opened as to what is possible.
You just mentioned the word impossible. Now, that in itself, impossible means I'm possible. So going back to the doctors and stuff like that, and those people that scientifically think that the mind can only control and do certain things, but when you actually know who you are and you know what you can achieve, you can overcome your mind, because your mind is that negative ego that lives in your mind and says, oh, I've got to be scared, or I can't do this, or this and that, the other. If you can push past that,
Correct.
You can achieve anything.
So, and for me, that I'm a motivational, inspirational speaker, but I'm not the guy who stands on stage and says anything in the world that you put your mind to, you can do.
Yes.
Okay. I dull it down a little. I'm a little more realistic, and I hope people can relate to this a little more.
You use your experience.
You need to understand how powerful your mind is. And once you understand how powerful it is, you also need to understand that it's the gateway to absolute greatness, but it's this powerful mind that is actually your biggest hurdle. It is the thing that is holding you back because it's designed to keep you safe.
Yes.
And being safe is obviously a good thing, but it is overprotective in all aspects of your life. So when, for example, it's just using the swimming, because that's what I know, where my mind tells me the end point is, where death is imminent, is nowhere close to where it is. There is an end point in cold water. There are only two outcomes in a place like Antarctica. Either I am going to warm Antarctica up, or it is going to cool me down. And the latter is far more realistic, and I will eventually die. However, my mind says don't even get in. Within the first 5 seconds of hyperventilation, it was telling me life was over. I stayed 32 minutes, and I still think I could have gone a little bit further.
Wow.
Not many people could have, but I'm glad I got up and I did. But once you understand in all aspects of life that we default to comfort, that it is your mind trying to keep you safe from that emotional pain. And I spend a lot of time helping people understand that. They never have to get in ice water, I promise, but through the various tricks that I have, the stories, you can start to understand.
So Ryan, you also attended an event in Siberia where you had to swim also in, I think you said -1 degrees?
The water temperature
the water
in Siberia,
temperature, yes.
was actually 0.3.
0.3, wow.
Once we found water underneath a frozen lake. But the issue in Siberia, and this was very early in my swimming days, and it was a bit of an accident really, the air temperature, the ambient temperature was -33 degrees Celsius.
Wow,
And 3 of us went over to Siberia to partake in a little ice swimming event that was happening there.
So tell us about that, yes.
Well, yes, it's a funny story, which taught me more lessons in life than I ever know, and a little bit of humility as well. Sitting in sunny South Africa, a gentleman, I've mentioned him a few times, Robben, started something called the International Ice Swimming Association, which is a body that defines what an ice swim is, and then records different feats and ratifies different things that you do in the ice. And we said, right, if you want to do an official ice swim, you have to swim 1 mile in a speedo type costume, no wetsuit, no crease, in an outdoor body of water, and that water needs to be 5 degrees or below. And together, I'm a founding member of that organization. We put rules and things in place, and we sent it out to the world to say, hey, anyone want to do an official ice swim mile? Use us, go through our organization, pay us €50 as well, and you get a red jacket and a certificate. And that was taken up by the cold world quite quickly, and we were invited to Siberia to partake in this event.
Oh.
And we said we're coming to do a mile, and they said no, and we said yes, and eventually we settled on 1 kilometer, because we are, the International Ice Swimming Association. After all, we don't want to do 50 meters or 100-meter dash. And when we got there, after not doing much more homework, and walked into -33 degrees Celsius, let me tell you how frightening that was.
Wow.
It was absolutely frightening, and I honestly thought just taking off one of my 2 gloves I'd lose fingers, let alone getting into a speedo. It was one of the most scary situations I've been in.
So Ryan, we were sitting earlier outside discussing that you're also a motivational speaker. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I am indeed. I'm blessed to stand on many stages and to share my story. I owe full credit to the fact that I'm a motivational speaker to my manager Jill Atwood, who kicked me in the pants enough time to say, people will find your story interesting. Just go tell them what you've learned. And I didn't believe it until I actually started. Got my first gig, and it's totally snowballed from there. So yeah, I literally stand on the stage and give a story from how I started on the couch and I tell some beautiful stories of what I've done through Antarctica and Siberia and Alcatraz and lots more, and illustrate in a very relatable and fun way, that if I'm an absolutely ordinary Joe, which I am, I have no superhuman abilities to self-heat, I have nothing like that. It is all a mindset, and if you want to do it, you can do it, and you just need to get to a level of understanding of your mind, as we've discussed earlier. And then taking that a step further, because I do these talks that thankfully are very, very enjoyed, people see firsthand what can be achieved, but they're not always sure in the hour that I'm on stage how to adopt that mindset. And so we've put together a 4-hour workshop, or a half-day workshop, where we actually sit with much smaller teams, and I take them and we even do some little ice exercises, and they hear my story firsthand, and we relate, and we do a whole bunch of talking in that time that helps them understand just how hard it is to maintain what I call the grit mindset. So it's easy to say, oh yes, the mind is a wonderful tool and it's defaulting us to safety, and therefore I must get out my comfort zone. But as soon as you walk out the room, and this absolutely goes for me, when I wake up in the morning, I've forgotten all of that. And the first thing that comes my way, I want to default back to comfort.
Yes, correct.
And I need to recognize it and practice. And every single time I stand on the shore of some either long stretch of water or cold stretch of water or rough stretch of water, I have all those fears and all those default instincts that telling me don't do it. And it's what I try and do is explain to people how it needs to be practiced.
Yes.
Because once you practice it daily, it starts to become a natural habit to question why you're staying in your comfort zone, and to recognize that you're staying in your comfort zone, because that's the first part. Most people don't recognize that they are operating and not learning anything, staying safely inside the comfort.
Yeah, because they basically live every single day. You get up, you have breakfast, you go to school, you go to work, you do the same thing over and over. And with myself, what I do is, even if I go to gym in the morning, I make sure that every single day I take a different route, so that I know that I'm not living the same pattern over and over. And if I get in a lift, I face the people, or I face the door, I face sideways.
Oh, you're that person.
You're not that person. Making sure that I never do the same thing, because that keeps me in the present moment. And when you're in your comfort zone, you're either living in your future or you're living in your past. You're not living in the present moment.
Absolutely.
So you've also got a flip-flop business.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. That's amazing.
So we very recently launched our own range, or the Ryan Stramrood Push Past Impossible range of grit slip-slops, which are recycled or upcycled from used car tires. So I do a lot of work in the communities, but mostly plastic in the oceans. The single-use plastic vibe, we're all getting on that bandwagon, and the more the merrier.
Absolutely.
But one of the things that pollutes our planet, every single car tire that's ever been made, and you can imagine how many of those are, still exists. Millions. It's out there.
Yes.
And we partnered with a company that are upcycling those used car tires and making the most beautiful, hard, tough slip-slops, and we are selling them. And at the moment, all the proceeds, all the profits from those sales are going to a gentleman called Arafat Gatabazi, who's a refugee that I've been working with and has done 4 Robben Island crossings from not even being able to swim, and he is giving back so beautifully in terms of helping others to swim, and so I'm helping him with the proceeds from my slip-slops for now.
On social media to see how you are. So we're wishing you the best of luck with your new adventure and ventures, and keep us posted, and thank you so much for coming on to the Bernice Vanek Show.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and thanks for all your interest in what I do.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I'm just going to end off with a quote that I found that I thought was really appropriate for this interview. The intuitive mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. We have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. Albert Einstein.
Wow.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm going to use that.
Very nice.
Thank you.